This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 660 with solar updates and local AI, recorded on October 16th, 2025. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way in there. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the Average Guy TV studios in a laid-back position again. Neck is still struggling really bad tonight. And this position is the most sustainable over the course of time. If I sit up, which I've had to do a bunch of calls today where I needed to sit up and lean in. Whew, got about 20 minutes, and then I was done. So appreciate you guys letting me hang out in a relaxed position here. We'll post the show with some world-class show notes out at the Average Guy .tv. Big thanks to our Patreon subscribers. You know what? I really appreciate you guys. I know we say that every single show. But appreciate you guys. We have one plan, $5. Helps with what we do and the things that we talk about. So appreciate you doing that. If you're finding value in the program, join the Patreon for 1 month or as many as you want. You can check it out today, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. Then thanks for everybody using the affiliate link over there on the site. If you hit out theaverageguy.tv, upper right-hand corner, there's an affiliate pass-through. Just click on that. It'll take you right into Amazon. And the network will get any credit for what we do, for what you do, what you purchase out there. Many of you are doing that. Thank you for doing that. And of course, it doesn't cost you anything. And you can jump in there and get it done as well. Again, check it out, theaverageguy.tv. All right, another week. Almost took the week off, but thought, no, we have a few things to talk about. And we've got some updates to do. One, let me get a little drink here. It's just water. One of them is an update on the solar setup. So I don't know, a month ago, 2 months ago. I'll recap kind of what what I've done to date so far. If you listen to the episode with Jay Franzi, that must have been 4 or 5 weeks ago. I bought a Delta 3, EcoFlow Delta 3. I want to put a Pro in there, but it's not the Pro version. There are Pros. 1,024 watt hour battery, 500 watts of charging. I'll handle up to 1,800 watts discharge. You can look up the specs. We've got some posts out there as well. Pick that up, a whole bunch of wiring, and then two 100 watt, 18 volt solar panels from EcoFlow. And I picked those up for about $50 each. So 50 cents a watt on those. Not the best price ever, even though it seems like it. Not the best price, but it's okay. And pick those up, set them up. In fact, let me, I got some pictures here. Well, let's jump in. I'm going to show them to you off my phone. So let's bring that in here. And that's the EcoFlow right now. That's the EcoFlow app that's in there. Let's get back to the pictures and we'll go over there. Tonight, I just took a few out there on the setup. Some of you asked, like, hey, are you going to video your setup? And I was kind of like, no, I don't think so. I think there's a lot out there of folks doing these setups, and it's just a lot of work to film them. So I haven't, plus the way I've been feeling, it was hard to get this up the way I did. But you can see here, this is the porch on my house. And let's see if we can, I wonder if that'll let us zoom in on it. I don't think it will on this. So you can see there, it's hanging off the edge of the porch at a 26-degree angle or something like that. There's two panels that are there. Took a picture of them from the top. Those are set up. That's a top view looking down. Just took those tonight and set up out there, ran the wire out to them. So again, they are each 100 watts. Each set out at an angle. Each of them tied in, or I should say each, but they're tied together in series. And they're providing on a pretty regular basis. They're providing, anywhere from 100 on a good day anywhere from 150. Well, I'm going to show you here real quick. So let's get into the EcoFlow app real quick, and we'll dive in here a little bit. Sorry on the audio on this one. You maybe you want to come out and catch the video of this. But the EcoFlow app that's attached to the battery, here's a summary. The 14th, this was 2 days ago. You can see here on the bottom of the app, that was 2 days ago, was a rainy day. And on a rainy day with those panels, I got a whopping 86 watt hours. Now, in theory, if everything's working right for me, I should be getting about 1,000 watt hours or 1 kilowatt hour for the whole day. So you can see here a rainy day. It gives you some idea of the during the day how the day went. That's the 14th. This is the next day. The green is power coming in from the grid. The yellow is power coming in from solar. I have the battery set to go between 90% and 50%. So when solar is working, it's pulling from that first and then using the battery power. Now, with 2 panels, like I said, I really can only expect at any given time between 150 and 200 watts. 200 is the max. Like, I've seen more. It doesn't happen very often. But it's generally 150, 160 is a nice 160 for a couple hours, right? So you see them coming in here. This was yesterday, 257 watt hours out of those 2 panels. Listen, you're not running. The goal here is not to run the house, right? The goal was to test out the locations and where would I put the panels and is it even viable in most cases? You know, I pay 12 cents a watt hour. Right, kilowatt hour. Sorry, 12 cents a kilowatt hour. 12 cents a watt hour would be a lot. 12 cents a kilowatt hour. Typically I use about 12 or 13. Now I've turned off some of the mining stuff, so I'm down to like 6 or 5. That's just for the computer stuff that's here. I use 6 to 7 kilowatt hours a day, right? And I'm generating 1, and the cost of that is 12 cents. So if I need to pay for that on a daily basis, I'm really just saving myself 12 cents a day. That, you know, do the math on that. It's $40 a year, something like that, right? So you're going to need way more. And again, I didn't have any aspirations of powering the whole house. It was just to kind of get an idea. Would this work? Would it work here? What's the weather like? So you can see here on the 15th, 257 watt hours that were there. And then actually today was a pretty good day. So as we look at that graph, you can see a lot of yellow on it. And today was a more typical day, right? I got 1.03 kilowatt hours off the batteries. You can also see here the total. So for today so far, 4.7 kilowatt hours for the setups here. Yesterday, about 5.73, 5.74 the day before that on the 14th, about 6 on the 13th, 7. This is a weekend, so I'm running a little bit more, about 7 here on the 11th. So, and then you can see this is the last day I was running the crypto stuff. 12.6 kilowatt hours. I usually run about 13 on that. I think I shut that off in the afternoon, so it started dropping right after that. So again, it gets me some idea. I had no idea how much power I was drawing. I mean, I could have set up meters and stuff, but this sure was a fun way to kind of get that done. So as you can see then, for me, thinking along the math lines on this. So if 2 panels are pulling in about a kilowatt hour a day. And remember, so like the kilowatt hours is just how many watts in an hour. So pretty easy from that standpoint. Yeah, 500 watts running for an hour, that's 500 kilowatt hours, right? So wanted to, and Brian, good to see you guys. I hope I see Brian checking in. He says hello. Happy birthday to Sammy. Yeah, catch up, Brian. Get there, would you? And Tony's checking in, saying good evening. Check in if you're in the chat room. But so this week, so that's pretty, It's a pretty cool little app. Like the Bluetti that I had purchased before that, not even close on the app. Not a bad app. I wonder if that's on. Let's go back. Let me share that again. Let's see. We'll just show you side by side. If you're thinking about getting one of these, the EcoFlow wins hands down. Let's go back and find that Bluetti app here. There we are. And we'll get logged in on that one. And you can see here's the 180 device. Now, this device now is a couple years old. I've got it completely charged. It's just sitting right now. It's just sitting as a backup. If the power went down, in theory, I could plug the EcoFlow into the Bluetti, start using it that way. You lose a little bit, right? It's not, I'm going DC to AC back to DC, and you lose some in that conversion. So not the smartest way to do it. There isn't a lot of good DC to DC ways between these two batteries to make them work. So I'm just kind of letting it sit today as kind of just a double backup. If the power was to go down, I'd plug the EcoFlow into the Bluetti, and it would use it as a second form of backup. Now you can see the app here. Not bad. Turn the AC on and off. You get an idea of the watts coming in on solar. That's what's here on the upper left. Bottom would be any DC charging that's coming in. Oh, no, the top would be the grid. And then the bottom is any DC power going out or any AC power going out. And you can flip those on and off. Like I could you want to turn the DC on? Yep, you can turn it right on from the app. It'll go in there. What it doesn't have is the stats. Like, you get some idea what's happening. Here's the current power wattage that's running at the current voltage and the frequency. But I don't get any reporting in the Bluetti app, which kind of made me sad. The other thing the Bluetti didn't do that the EcoFlow does is to be able to run the battery between a 90 and a 50%. And I can kind of set that to be whatever I want. And hey, Joe, good to see you. Thanks for checking in. Good to see you. What I wanted to be able to do was set it so that when the solar power is coming in, it's using that first. And the Delta Pro does that, or the Delta 3 does that. The Bluetti doesn't, which was a little disappointing, just to be honest. Now, that Bluetti battery is a little bit older now, and it's, it'll get pushed down the line to be used for various things. I'll start taking it with me when I need portable power and some of those kinds of things. It's kind of nice to have two, just to have one of those to take with me. But the Bluetti would not do it. And I contacted their support, and they were like, yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. So we have the EcoFlow would, and so that's the big difference between the two. I did do a write-up. If you're interested in more of the details with some more details around that, I did do a write-up. Let's see. Let me bring that up here for you guys. I'll throw that link in the chat. We did that write-up, a couple weeks ago now. Throw it in the show notes as well if you want to see that. I'll bring up the picture on screen for you so you can see it. But this is basically the write-up we did between these two. Look at Bluetti on the left, EcoFlow on the right. EcoFlow is actually a little bit smaller and has just a little, not quite as much battery hours to it as far as the battery size, but certainly has a lot more functionality inside the app. Those guys seem to be doing it pretty well. So today, if I was buying, and I did, I did buy today, I would stay probably in the EcoFlow family. They have the new Delta Pro 3X or something like that, or no, the Delta Pro Ultimate X, something like that. And I was watching a YouTube video with that, and it's like some ungodly amount of battery power, and plus the inverter's giant. So, I'm sure that line is competing like a Tesla wall at this point for where they're at. I don't think I'm going to go that far. No, I know I'm not going to go that far, at least not right now. I do have, yesterday, 2 days ago, I purchased 4 more of the 100-watt, 18-volt panels. You could see from the porch picture, there's quite a bit of room up there. So I'll probably put 4 more along the front, and maybe 2 on the side. As the sun's going down, that one side gets the sun hard. The afternoon sun for us on that spot is brutal. And so I may put 2 on the side to kind of diversify my solar energy throughout the day. Right. One of the things the EcoFlow, both the EcoFlow and the Bluetti have a max 500 watt inverter coming in. So the MPPT controller can only accept 500 in. After 500, it just doesn't take anymore. It can only do 500. So one of the thoughts is if I put 4, I'll have 5 panels. I have 2 now, and I ordered 4 more, so I have 6 total. If I put 4 on the front during the high point of the day, I'll have 400-ish, let's say 380. And then as the sun's going down, those other 2 on the other side of the rail will pick up the intense part of the afternoon sun. And my hope is as they add to that, it'll bring it to about 500. I'm going to mess around with it. I won't permanently install anything right away. We'll put these, I'll just set them out basically best I can. Today, they're installed with PVC pipe. So it's not like it's a permanent install as it is. They're screwed in. I mean, they're not going anywhere. They're all locked down. They're not going anywhere. But I use PVC pipe because it's cheap and easy. And so we'll get those installed. I need to order 1 more set of brackets to make that work. But the goal is to diversify that power across the day, as the sun's going across the sky. Diversify the power so I could have 600 total, but they'd be positioned in a way where we never get more than 500, and we would get more power throughout the day. So we'll have to see how it's fun to mess around with. I've kind of messed around with the idea of getting them to tilt so they can tilt towards the sun, put a motor on them, put them on a hinge, put them on a swivel so I can have a motor control them as it goes across the sky. Not yet. Still working on the setup. They still haven't come yet. So they'll be here on Monday. But that's kind of the goal on the solar setup. The goal is to, and again, start small. The batteries only take 500 anyway, so I'll probably stop at this point. If I was going to go bigger at this point, I would need if I was going to go, the next round of this would be 400 watt or higher panels. You can get, 400 or 425s or 480s. And if you get them used, you can get them pretty cheap. And I need 10 of them. And then I need an 10, maybe 8 to 10 kilowatt hour battery to be able to store all that, right? So with solar, and this, but with solar, right, you're only getting 6 hours of really good solar during the day. So you've got to be able to charge that battery, and you need more solar panels than you need, and you got to overcharge during the day so that at night when you're using the batteries, they last long enough. I mean, that's the goal, right? So you got to kind of over engineer the whole thing. And then what do you do? I know all these off grid folks that I watch, they all have a generator backup for the winter because, in the winter months, it's even less here in the Northern Hemisphere. And so they're using their generator then like when it's multiple cloudy days, something like that. Again, I don't have not going full house. I just want to mess around with it. Just want to mess with the wiring. To be honest with you, the most expensive part of all this is the freaking wiring. Copper is not cheap right now. Gas is, but copper is not cheap right now. And so you've got a little bit of it's not about $1 a foot for, I think I have 10 gauge wire, about $1 a foot. Got a good 40-foot run from the front of the house to back here where the batteries are. I want the batteries close to the computers. And that's the front of the house. So I got to run wires all the way out there. I did install while I was doing it. I did install a hookup to the back. So if at some point I want to decide to move the panels back there, maybe I don't want them out front. Maybe I don't want people seeing them. My neighbors are all asking me questions like, what are you doing? Are you trying to run your whole house? At some point I may move them in the back. I'm thinking about building a new shelter out there over the grill area. They could go on top of that. They don't get as much sun back there, which is, and I don't get as much diversity in sunlight back there. So I'll have to figure it out. That's the fun of doing it. So those panels will be in Monday, hopefully next weekend. Do some. I don't have to do any more wiring, which is great. Well, I have to cut one. I need one long wire to get it because it's going to go down the side, and I've got to do a little bit of wiring to make that work. But then you have some options too. With that many panels, I could run them all in series because the wattage is good. I have to watch the amperage. So I got a little math to do. Do I do them all in series? Do I put do I put 3 and 3, then, run them in parallel, then put those parallel together in series? I got a little math to do, so I have to figure that out when we get it out there. But it's a ton of fun. I'd love to hear about what you're thinking about solar. Put it in the chat now, or you can put it on YouTube, put it in the comments down below. What are you trying? What are you thinking about? Boy, I tell you what, while you're doing that, it's a huge commitment, especially folks in chat, Brian or Joe or Tony. It's still a huge cost. And some of the incentives are going away, right? For this, there's been I think a 30% tax advantage for solar over a certain size. Check your area, check your taxes for however that works out. Not tax advisor. I think those are in the United States. I think those are going away. Some local ones that aren't, so you might want to check on that. I don't know. I am opposed to putting them on my roof. I don't want to damage the roof in that way. So if they go someplace, they're going to have to go on other structures. Yeah, a couple. Keep the comments coming in to Brian out in chat. Says thought about solar a little, but maybe more about the battery banks. Listen, Brian, I'm never buying those APC backups ever again. Now, these solar generator batteries, which have 10 or 20 millisecond cutover, and they're all fine for the computer stuff. They were great for that. They're more expensive, right? I mean, but they'll run longer. Both these batteries would run, and I could, if I wanted to, I could divide out the computer stuff among the two, and I'd have even longer times. But if the power went out today, I'd be running just like this for the next hour. I have enough, maybe even a little bit more, because I don't have the crypto rigs running. So, which when I had the APC stuff, even with the big ones, you're racing. I just never felt very secure about that. A real good one is $200, lead acid, I think, or whatever that battery chemistry is. It's just not lithium ion. And so for me personally, I'm not going back to backup batteries, old school backup batteries. I'm going to let these new solar generators back up what I got. The good news is there are a ton of options for you right now. Just when you think of the Jackeries and the EcoFlow and the Opes and the Bluettis and and then there's a whole bunch of different off brands that you could go with. And I think we're in the sweet spot with lithium ion batteries right now, where they're making them as cost effective as they've ever made them. And so I see some really good deals on these. Now, for most people, you probably don't need 1,000 watt-hour battery, right? Most people are running a computer or a laptop, which has a battery, by the way, a couple monitors. You might need half of that, 600 watt-hours. Might be good to get you, 30 to 60 minutes of juice while you're setting up whatever you're going to do to power that thing. For me, the hour gives me some time to go out in the garage, pull the generator out, wheel it around back, plug it into the house, fire it up, get the house cut over. That's what I want. I want an hour. And so the way I work it is that's my kind of thought. Now, like I said, I had based my energy use on about 500 to 700 watt hours of power that I'm pulling here. And I have about 1,000-ish watt-hour battery, so an hour and some change, 1.2, 1.3 on that one. So you figure out what your draw is. You can get a kilowatt meter. I've been using these Tapo from TP-Link. You can plug them in and measure. They'll give you some stats. I'll try to leave a link for that in the chat or in the show notes. But I've been using those to kind of measure, besides the app that comes with the batteries, those plugs, and make sure you got to get the better ones. You can't buy the cheapest of the cheap because they won't have the metering. The more expensive ones, they're more like 10 or 12 bucks. It's not that much. You can get a 2-pack for 20 bucks. Kind of help you measure that. Okay, here's what I'm drawing at any given time. It's particularly interesting to see what you're drawing across the day. And I was talking with my buddy at work today. I never do, but some people put their computers to sleep at night. Maybe you have a laptop that goes to sleep and it's not pulling any power, overnight. So you want to work out the math on that, figure those out, figure out what your daily draw is or your max draw. Of all your stuff, what's the max that you're pulling at any given time? Then think, okay, I'm just going to divide that into the watt hour rating of that battery. Give yourself some room. It's not perfect, but it's close. And then that'll tell you, it's going to be 30 minutes or it's going to be an hour. You're going to pay twice as much as you would pay for an APC or fill in the blank for that. But it's better. I think it's way better. I think you get way better options there. So if you're thinking about that, the next time you go to replace your UPS, and it does give you some options. Right now, I got that extra Bluetti that, I paid $700 for it. So it wasn't cheap, but in theory, I could take it up, in a power outage. I could unplug it and take it up, plug the fridge in and have it as the kitchen power. We could run most things in the kitchen off it. You're not going to run the stove, right? Not going to run the dishwasher, but you could run a few lights or whatever, power a few batteries, some of those kinds of things. Just get us by. Get us by for a while in a real crunch. So nice to have those options on hand. Solar's a whole different. That's the way to get it in. Many of them. This is the beauty of these. Most of them are, if they can do solar power, they have an MPPT controller right on the inside. It's going to be rated for input and output. It's going to have an inverter in it. It's going to tell you what it can push out, then the battery rating on it. And boy, this is the heyday of these solar generators. They're getting bigger, they're getting better, and seemingly the quality is getting really good on them. So if you got some questions, you can contact me on that as well. All right, a little bit of chat on. I want to talk last topic tonight. The last thing I want to talk about tonight, unless you got some questions in chat you want to throw out for me. I had this thought on the way home the other day. I don't know. Have you guys checked out any of the local LLMs, local AI stuff? Let me bring up one on screen here for you guys. You need to have a fairly robust computer to be able to get this done. This one's running off the Mac right now. This is LM Studio. They're on version 0.3, 0.3, still in beta, build 1. So still early days on this. As you're looking on the screen here, it looks a lot like ChatGPT, acts a lot like ChatGPT. It is ChatGPT. Actually, the model that I have loaded right now in it, and I'm in dark mode, so it's you're getting. I just realized I forgot to bring up to put the Home Gadget Geek colors behind here tonight. It's okay. I was going full screen, so you wouldn't have seen it anyways. But you can get, so what you're seeing here is the chat model works just like ChatGPT. On the M4, these things run great. I got it same studio on my Windows machine. It's got 128 gig of RAM and a 3060 video card, so it does pretty well on the Windows side. If you got a gaming rig, these things will run pretty well. They are memory intense, run really well on the Mac. But you can see here, this is the chat space that we're looking at. This is I'm in super user mode, so if you wanted to write some code, you could in that. I don't. This is a section where you can download. You go to the directories and download different directories and find models that are out there. Well, this is where these are the models. This one is the models I've downloaded here. I right now have OpenAI. They just released a couple weeks ago, 2 months ago, I guess now, a 12 gig version of their OSS 20 billion model. And you can see the parameter here, 20 billion. You can go out and search for them. So if I wanted to come out and take a look and say, do I want to go, you can see here on screen, they're grabbing all of the open sourced versions of these. I can select it, download it. It'll tell me, the Quen 3 here, this one gives me the parameters on it. This is a 4 billion model. It's got vision capabilities and some tool use. You can kind of dig in on this. There's instructions here that say, here's what it can do. Its speed is, and this was just a new release. So this one just came out. I have to try this one. I've been kind of messing around with them. And this one, you can do a full GPU offload if you want to do it all on the GPU. Only 3 gig, so not terrible. I think the one I'm running now is maybe 5 gig. Let's go back and look at that one here. We'll go back in. No, it's 12 gig, so it's pretty large. It took a little while to download, but you can pop in here and then ask it questions. And I said, what can you do that the online models can't? Right? Because as we think about having it local, this isn't going out and grabbing anything. It's not sharing my data with anybody. It's all staying 100% local. So, so the short answer in this grid, hardly a short answer, but when we think of data privacy and control, right, you can keep all of your data on your hardware, right? Nothing leaves the device. Where with the cloud hosted models, data usually goes to the provider server, where it may be logged or used for model improvement. May not, depends on what you have and what you're paying and some of those kinds of things. But if you wanted to guarantee your data stayed safe, local AI might be the way to do it. When we think about latency and responsiveness, the offline or local model, 0 round trip time, right? Everything's happening instantly. It's right there. Now, that being said, my experience has been the online models still go faster in some cases, depending on what I'm throwing at them, right? There's a lot of compute. That may not last forever, friends. One of the things I want you to think about in these local models is we are definitely in an AI bubble, right? We are living in if you miss the .com bubble of 2000, we may be back in it in the biggest bubble I've seen in my lifetime with this AI. When that bursts and funding gets pulled, I mean, all these AI data centers are not free, and who knows where this AI will go. So it might be a good idea, especially if you use this stuff a lot, to understand the current free models, the open models. They may not be around a while. You might want to download a few of them and have them available somewhere. You can grab them again. But this may be, and I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I'm just trying to get you to think like maybe smart to have a few of these things offline, right, and available in case something does, people go out of business, whatever, right? They pull them back. They start charging $1,000 for them, whatever. Cost per request difference. No reoccurring API fee once the model's deployed locally. And then, you're getting on an online, you're getting a per token. Most people are paying a fee, right? You're just paying $20 a month at this point. Not always. If you've got advanced models, you're using an AI API, you might be paying on a per minute or a per token charge. Not local, right? That's all free for you. You don't have the most latest models, by the way, but they're pretty close. They're not too bad. On the local model, you can train or fine tune your own data, right? Tweak hyperparameters, even modify the architecture if you want to. Not going to happen on the cloud models. You're just not going to do that in some cases. Or it's rare, right? That you have that kind of control over it. Local, when you think about reliability and uptime, it's as reliable as your hardware, right? As your infrastructure. When you think about, we haven't had any problems. We haven't heard of AI outages yet. I kind of alluded to this. I think we might see some. but you're dependent on the provider, right? So there could be service interruptions. You don't control any of that. Then, of course, with local, you can guarantee the data never leaves your environment. And you say, hey, Jim, how do you know that? I don't. I'm assuming, like, I'm pretty sure at this point it's staying local. The feature of it, of course, you can't, when you're sending your data somewhere else, you don't know. And then feature access, full control over what features are exposed. And then with the providers, limited, right? Limited ability to impose policies, content filters on that. Then they talk about offline models can do things that online ones can't, which they can do zero trust deployment. You can, because you control all that, custom architecture tweaks. You get to control the architecture if you want to do it that way. You can fine tune the data. There's no limits or throttling, right? It's throttled by what you own for sure, but you control that. On-device interference for edge use cases, and then full data retention and control. By the way, this is AI giving me these answers, right? So this isn't me necessarily, trying to make this stuff up. This is what it did. I said, you tell me the difference, right? So if you want control over your AI, this is a model to try. I mentioned these months ago, maybe last year, even early in the year. And I've been following these models. I think I started on version 1 of LM Studio. And then Ollama, you can also, that's another program you can use. Ollama works on both Windows and Mac. I'll have links to these in the show notes. They're working on those, and you control it. Might be something you might want to think about and give it a try. Like I said, I'd prepare, like you have a battery backup for your computers. I'm thinking I may store some of these models just so I have them available to me, right? And if I ever needed them and whatever happens, who knows what's going to happen when the AI bubble bursts. It may not be as bad as we think, oftentimes it wasn't. We thought Y2K was going to be bad, and it wasn't. I was working that day. I was working for a bank on that day, and I thought, oh, and nothing happened, right? But it may not hurt to be ready. One of the use cases, and this is what I want you guys to think about. Drop this in the comments here live or in YouTube if you're listening to this. Love to hear, or if you want to send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. I think there's some good uses for the local version that I wouldn't necessarily do with the online version, like with ChatGPT. And a couple days ago, as I was driving home, I was thinking about this. Like, what would I use local for realistically, And what I'd love to do, and I'm going to give it a try, I think, is to load in my financial, my bank statements. Now everybody's like, you're like, what? You're going to do what? Right? Well, it's local. Data's local to me. It's my instance. It stays with me. It's my data. I have a couple spreadsheets. One of the things for me that I don't like to reconcile is it's easy to reconcile my bank statement. But then there's all these Amazon purchases that we make, and those are harder to reconcile back to the whole budget. And I'd like to take advantage of some of the AI analytics that are associated with it. So if I took my monthly bank statement, dropped it in, I took my monthly Amazon statement, dropped it in, said, hey, match the Amazon and the bank statement and then I'd have a separate credit card statement, right? Too, because we put the Amazon on a credit card, and then I pay the credit card with the bank. I just pay it off every month. I just pay it off. So I'm losing some granularity. So I'd be like, okay, when I make the credit card payment, then I want you to go through the credit card, because I also make automatic payments for things off my credit card each month that I want to get reconciled in some way. And then I want to reconcile these Amazon purchases that I'm making. What am I buying? Where's it at? What are we doing? Including all the subscription stuff, right? So the idea is to feed in the bank statement and feed in the credit card statement and feed in the Amazon statement and see if it can reconcile it. In theory, I think it can, right? Keep it local. It's private to me. Maybe you find the right LLM to make that work. What other things are you thinking about? Or what else do you think? Would you want to use a private instance of the local, local versus public? Brian says in chat, he says, I'd be interested to read more about the privacy aspect of local. If they truly secure that, I agree. Some health and financial would be good to upload. Yeah. Actually, your health records, like, let's just for a second assume it is private, right? It's not being moved. Listen, just because it's on your computer doesn't mean it couldn't be reporting back to the home station, right? I think if that were true, we'd know about that. I think because they're open source, right? I mean, this whole promise of open source is that people can inspect it and say, is it going back? I think we might know about that. Let's just say it is. Let's make an assumption it is, Brian. In that case, I would also, if I get my health records in there, have it do some analysis on those, like give it, I've got probably the last 6 or 7 years of my annual physicals, have it do some, you got all this data. I don't know. That could be interesting, right? Could be something to look at. What else? Let's just assume it's private. Like, we're making that assumption for now. What do you think? What other kinds of things? Drop that in the chat or drop it in YouTube. I'd love, or send me an email, Jim@theaverageguy.tv. I'd love to hear what you think. If you don't have to do it, this is totally theoretical. But I'm kind of interested. Like, what could that be? What kind of helpful things might that be? We'll have Gavin back on. Gavin Campbell. We'll have Gavin back on next couple weeks. I'm interested. He's alluded to this several times, but Home Assistant has an AI plugin, and I'm starting to gather more and more data now, and wondering, okay, how do I bring more of this data? I guess got energy data. How do I bring that in? Would that be a great local instance? Tie that in, have that work, have that do some analytics on it. So, yeah, what do you think? What would you use it for? If it's truly local, what kind of data do you have that might benefit from that you never throw into ChatGPT? You're like, no, I don't think so. Or Claude or Gemini, Grok, any of those, Copilot, any of those that are out there, who knows where they'll go or what they'll do. I do think you owe it to yourself, if you can, to get one of these local LLMs rolling, or at least understand the environment, right? Now, the software is all open source, so LM Studio or Ollama, those are the two easiest ones I've used so far. Load in the models, give it a try. Of course, slower the computer, things are going to drag. Bigger the model, things are going to drag. So 20 billion model is going to run much slower than a 4 billion model, right? 4 billion won't be able to do as much, although there are many that are optimized for certain tasks, right? Some of this art creation, like if you got a really beefy computer, you might be able to do some art locally. That makes sense. I don't know. Your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. And just give me an idea. I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by what we're doing. I think the real question is, when's the bubble burst? That's the real question. None of this stuff that we're doing right now with AI is sustainable. Brian says at the moment, I like some privacy policy Apple has with its private cloud compute. Yeah. But do you really know? I mean, they say that, but do you really know? I heard an interesting, I'll wrap it on this, this thought. I heard an interesting, I was listening to the Wall Street Journal podcast this week. By the way, if you want a quick news podcast, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, gives a nice wrap of the day. Wall Street Journal, pretty good little podcast for that. No commentary, just the news. But I was listening to them, and they were talking about all these data centers that we're putting up, and of course the big problem is power, right? We started with power. you know, one of the things, we got a giant Google data center just across the river from us in Iowa here, and you know they're just getting hungrier and hungrier for power. Now, I think as we think about the power needs of these AI data centers, we're projecting right now what they're going to need. They're not ready yet. I mean, they still got to build them in some cases. They got to put infrastructure in and build, you know, walls and run power. We got to get power lines, you know. So it's not like it's all going to turn on instantly. Part of my solar experiment was if we ever start drawing more or we start having power problems, I would like to have a little bit of a backup to generate power, just in case I need it. We've had enough disasters, natural disasters, where, boy, having a 5 or 6 or 10 watt hours of solar a day, well, you can all of a sudden start to cut back. Like if you know this is my solar draw for the day and I'm not going to have anything else, and I have a generator too, but just kind of thinking through this, right? Like, what if gasoline's hard to get to? You know, you got to kind of, and again, I'm not a giant prepper. I'm just kind of thinking through these things. What I found interesting was some of these companies are doing their own power generation on site. They're not waiting to get the grid hooked up. They're figuring out how to get power. I think the most famous story, right, is Microsoft trying to turn back on one of the reactors in 3 Mile Island, right? Paying to have that turned back on. Not in a million years did we ever think that'd be a good idea. Nobody's blinking at it right now. They're saying, "Oh yeah, turn it on." Now I know there's some groups who are like, that's old. That's an old reactor, right? Right? That's okay. We'll fix it. Will they? Or will they just turn it on, right? Kind of thing. But many of them, and then think about, like, if you were gonna set up data centers around the US, and maybe you were going to do a couple, you were going to spread them around or whatever. Or, maybe you just need enough power to get things going on site, and then you start connecting to the grid over time, and that power just gets you past it. And when you're fully hooked up to the grid, that power just becomes your backup, or you move that to the next site. You put together a giant, gigawatt power generation grid of diesel generators, so to speak, and, hook them up and get them rolling, get you going. And, and then when you're done with that, you're rolling on to the next. They're all portable. You pack them up on trucks and move them to the next location and do it again, So I found that fascinating, that some of them are not waiting for the grid to get to them. Some of them are using solar, although it takes, with the stuff they're pulling, it takes a lot of solar, to get there. So interesting. We live in interesting times. It's always been interesting. That's the cool part about technology, right? Is it's always been interesting. Joe says AI video generation is wild. Yeah, there's both the video and the pictures and stuff. It's crazy times. It is crazy times before. I will say this if you just think about the writing aspect of AI, I've called it a word calculator. In the 70s, we started getting calculators, not on our phones. They were separate, right? We had separate calculators, and everybody was so concerned, like, nobody's ever going to do math again. Well, no, we kept doing math. We just did more math faster. Right. And I think with word generators or word LLMs or the current version that we have. Yeah, it can do some other, I mean, conversationally is crazy good at that kind of stuff too. But just what it does for writing. I'm not a particularly good writer, and it makes my writing a lot better, you know. The Brian says in chat, he says, yeah, it is. It's scary. It's challenging to tell what's real or not. I was at work a couple days ago, and I was chatting with a group about this topic of how will we guarantee our voice isn't copied or our image isn't copied. And I actually think this is a problem the blockchain can solve, you know, where we can put in our actual voice and authenticate it in some way, and then it gets published to a blockchain that can't be changed. It's public, and you can always compare your voice to, and I don't think this would just happen naturally. I think a company would have to do this, right? Somebody would have to get behind it. But blockchains would be really good at having a voice print that authenticates and says, yes, that is indeed yours. It was interesting. We've been messing around a lot with voice cloning at work. And our thought is it's a lot faster just write a script and actually have AI write the script and then have a voice clone of somebody in the company just do it. So that was me. We made a clone of my voice. And boy, we had like a 3-minute video, and we worked to get that to sound like it was me. First of all, it didn't sound exactly like me, even though we trained it that way. There was a little bit of somebody else in there, and then to get the cadence right the way we wanted it. Oh, I mean, it was more work. It was, listen, I sat down, and in 12 minutes, I recorded the whole thing 3 times. Right? I mean, I recorded the whole script with multiple ways of reading things in different takes 3 times in 12 minutes. We spent 12 minutes just trying to figure out a prompt to get it to say a word one way, the way we wanted it to say. So, and we're using a paid service. Like, this is the service everybody's like, this is the best. In some cases, yes. In our case, no, it was not the best, right? We really struggled with it. So I think we still have some work to do. I think in most cases, they're just not getting enough data on the voice on it. And then there's just inflection, right? The way we want to say something. We struggled a little bit. I wanted a particular inflection on these 4 different words and the way we say it, and it just would not, man. We did a whole bunch of markup, and we couldn't get it to do anything along those lines. So, a little bit of work to do, but it's not terrible. Works in a lot of cases. Crazy thing is, once you start working with this software, you see, like, once I started hearing my voice and the way it was doing things, and I was comparing stuff, and we did a couple of voices, then you go to YouTube and you realize just the sheer amount of AI voices now that are on YouTube doing videos. That's weird, and weird is probably the wrong word. Is anybody making anything real on YouTube? At this point, you got to wonder. And yes, the answer is yes. There's plenty of that stuff out there, but there's plenty of videos, like 3 hours. I see these all the time. 3 hours of history for sleep. And you can just put the video on, right? It's just this boring voice of 3 hours of whatever history that you want. The Cambrian era, they'll tell you all this history, everything they know. Folks are just trying to put those out there to get views on them. But it's all AI. It's 100% AI. The pictures are all AI. The voices are AI. Somebody wrote a script. I'm sure AI wrote a script. I could go to AI today and say, write me a 3-hour script for a video on this topic. Blah. It just barf it all out for you. It's not bad. It's just not great. And yeah. So we're going to have some challenges going forward. Yeah, Joe says he finds himself looking for a watermark on every video. Yeah, because they made it that way. Although you can buy the service and the watermark comes off. So, there's a lot out there. All right. Well, we made it through an hour, friends. Thanks for coming out tonight. It's good to see you guys. I'll start booking this weekend to get some guests coming back. It's time to get Aaron back and get Gavin. We get TJ back and Christian's lined up. We're coming up on the 15th year anniversary for Home Gadget Geeks. Mentioned last week, work has picked up again, and I'm doing more evening things at work. So some of those things may get in the way. I may have to cancel stuff for work, but we'll get some stuff scheduled, get some stuff pulled back in. But appreciate you guys coming out tonight and walking through this. I'll report back. Panels come in Monday. I probably won't have them set up by the next show, but here's what I'm expecting. We'll put the panels, they'll generate power, and they'll you just kind of do the math, right? If I'm putting them in the same spot, they're gonna, if they're generating a 1 kilowatt hour of power a day now, if I add 2 more, it's gonna be 2. If I had 6 total, that's gonna be 3, right? Pretty easy math on those for the most part. Although the way I'm gonna orient 4 one way and 2 the other, that could be interesting, just to see what that does. And I got to get Uyghur back too. He's busy. They just had a baby, so I got to get him in there and get him back on the show. He's harder to get, so I'll send a note over to him as well. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out at theaverageguy.tv/live. If it's the first time you've watched or listened and you made it this far, thanks. Welcome to the family. You're welcome to be here. Whether you come out and you join us live, or which more of you could come out if you wanted to, join us live on a Thursday night. It's pretty easy. averageguy.tv/live gets you to the live page, and I update that so the YouTube, it's out there, 8 o'clock. I'm going to 8 now. I told you that last week. We're back to 8. This works better for me. Sorry, 7 o'clock, people. But we're live, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. If you want to contact me, send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. Big thanks to Christian and Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. And that's Christian. Plan still 10? They? We'll have to ask him. He's here in just a minute. MapleGrovePartners.com. Check it out today. If you need hosting for anything, he will take good care of you. Thanks for coming out. I'll stay for around a little bit of a post show just because that's what I do. If you're listening on the podcast, thanks for coming out with that. We'll say goodbye, everybody.